Seattle has seen a spike in violent robberies at pot shops, marijuana dispensaries. Now, the industry is pushing federal legislation to allow credit card payments for weed. That would take a lot of cash out of the pot shops, so they're not such targets of robbery. Our Seattle guy is Jason Rantz, and he joins me now. Look, marijuana, recreational marijuana, I'm pretty sure has been okay in Seattle for many, many years. Does it play any role in the violence that we've seen downtown Seattle?
It's playing an indirect role in that they are very easy targets for violent criminals. We've seen a huge surge of crimes targeting these pot shops. In part, as you mentioned, these are cash-heavy businesses. They can't do any credit card work. And there have been a little bit of a conversation about being able to use digital currency in Washington state. They're kind of leaning in that direction in the interim. But the biggest problem here is you still have these police departments that have been defunded. Thus, you don't have enough staff members. So when you've got a 911 call going into one of these robberies, it's going to take officers a very long time to actually get to the scene, generally speaking. On top of that, we now have a law that was passed by Democrats 2 terms ago that basically says that unless you have probable cause that a violent crime occurred, you're not going to be able to pursue any vehicle filled with potential criminals who are leaving the scenes of these crimes. And so as long as you can do a quick smash and grab like they're doing at a lot of these pot shops, get in, get out really quickly, get in that car, for the most part, you know you're not going to be tracked by police.
You've been reporting on problems in the downtown Seattle for a couple of years now. What does downtown Seattle look like? I mean, from your reports, it sounds like a war zone almost. Is it?
It's no longer the war zone than it definitely was when we had our last mayor. Things have gotten a lot better in the downtown core. Now, a lot of that has to do with this new mayor, Bruce Harrell, trying to clean up downtown ahead of the tourist season. We expect to have more tourists in Seattle now that COVID hasn't gone away, but it's certainly not where it was a year or 2 years ago. So we are trying to clean up the space. The problem is he's still competing with the decriminalization of drugs. And, you know, in fairness to the folks who are in favor of legalized pot, it's not weed that's causing the problems in downtown or really across the state. We're seeing lots of fentanyl use, meth, heroin. Those are the drugs that have been causing such a huge problem in downtown. So things have gotten a lot better from where they were, but we're still nowhere near where we need to be.
Are you in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana?
I kind of go back and forth on this. I generally am okay with this so long as it is regulated. The problem is that in the state of Washington, they legalized weed without any understanding of the context of what that means, like not being able to use credit cards in a store, which means you are now making these shops more susceptible to crime. On top of that, they tax it so crazy that the black market is still alive and well, not just in Washington, but in Oregon also. You just have, it's much cheaper to purchase weed illegally, and you know you're not going to get prosecuted for it. Yeah. So we're not really doing anything other than giving a slightly different a safer option for some people who don't want to buy it on the streets, I guess. So I find myself kind of in the middle on this one. I lean towards legalization.
Okay, Jason Rantz, we hear you. Thanks for being with us today. Good report on Seattle right there. Actually, I've got more on Seattle. How about this? The city's police department staffing crisis is getting worse. What's the story?
They're not taking any new sexual assault cases. They just don't have the detectives to investigate the cases. They can't do it. I'll give you an example. In 2019, before the pandemic, 12 detectives in that unit. Now they've got 4, and the schools are open now, which means it's more visible to teachers, for instance, when a child or a teenager might be a victim of sexual abuse. And there's no one to do anything about it because that would be a new case, and the Seattle Police Department can't investigate it because they literally don't have the staff. And in talking to the Seattle Police Department, they said it's going to take 5 or 10 years for them to get kind of back to normal after the decimation, after the riots of 2 years ago.
There's something else here. What's this about Seattle cancelling 7 months worth of parking tickets?
So during the George Floyd protests, they took responsibilities away from the police department, right? And gave them to the transportation department. But they never commissioned the city employees, so not police, city employees, to issue parking tickets. But they did. They issued 200,000 over 7 months. So those tickets are now voided. And for 100,000 drivers who actually paid them, you'll get a refund. It's